In this lesson, we're going to work on adding and subtracting decimals, and so we're going to use what we learned about estimating in the first lesson to kind of help make sure that our answers make sense. And so what they're actually having us do on this one is our directions say add, and then it also tells us to estimate. So it's asking us to estimate first. So 4 and 55/100ths is close to 5. 11 and 3/10ths is close to 11, and so our estimate should be about 16. So now I'm going to do the actual math. And when we add and subtract decimals, it's most important that we line up our decimals. That's the most important thing that we need to know when we're adding and subtracting decimals, is that we actually line them up. So 4 and 55/100ths plus 11 and 3/10ths. Notice that my decimal places are lined up, and my answer will have the decimal fall on that line as well. So I can put a 0 here, and it doesn't change the value. 11 and 3/10ths is the same as 11 and 30/100ths. And now I'm just going to add like normal. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. 4 plus 1 is 5. And nothing plus 1 is 1. This answer is very close to 16, so I would guess that my answer is pretty reasonable. Makes sense that when I add 4 and 55/100ths plus 11 and 3/10ths, my answer is 15 and 85/100ths. So when I come down here, I'm going to do my estimate first. This is about -8 plus about -11. So my estimate is -19. Now we're going to actually do the addition by lining up our decimals, and we're going to see if our actual answer matches our estimate or is close to our estimate. And so remember that same signs we add and keep. So I added 8 and 11, and I kept my negative. On this, I'm going to add my decimals, and then my final answer will have a negative sign with it. And so that's why the estimate can really help us too, is so that we don't forget silly things like we don't forget the negative sign at the end. And so what I'm going to do here is I've lined up my decimal points. Notice that 8 and 33/100ths does not have a thousandths place, but I can put a 0 in the thousandths place without changing the value of the number. So 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 plus 7 is 10, carry my 1. 1 plus 3 plus 9 is 13, carry my 1. My decimal stays on this line right here, so there it is on my answer. 1 plus 8 is 9, and nothing in 1 is 1. Remember, our estimate had a negative, 2 negatives. When we add and keep when the sign is the same. So my answer for this is, my exact answer is -19 and 302 thousandths. I know that's close to my estimate, so it seems reasonable and makes sense, and I'm good to go. At this time, I would challenge you to try the next two on your own, and then watch the last video to see how well you did. Hopefully you tried these two on your own, and now you're just checking your answer to see if you got it correct. The estimate here, 6 and 44/100ths rounds to 6 plus 16. The estimate is about 22. Now the tricky part with this is that we have to line up our decimals, but where's the decimal in 16? There is no decimal. If you go back to your place value, you'll remember that after the ones place is my decimal point right here. And so after the ones place, which is the 6, is my decimal point. So my 16 with my decimal point is going to be lined up right here underneath the 6. And then I can add 2 zeros in the tenths and hundredths places without changing the value of that 16. And now I can go ahead and do my addition. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 plus 0 is 4. Bring down the decimal. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry my 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And so my answer here is 22 and 44/100ths. That seems very close to my estimate of 22, so it seems reasonable and makes sense for my answer. The very last one here, -9 when we estimate stays the same. 7 and 88/100ths is close to 8, so I'm going to put 8 here. When I'm adding integers, same signs add and keep, different signs, a negative and a positive, we subtract. 9 minus 8 is 1. Keep the sign of the higher number. In this case, that's the negative. So my estimate is that this is about -1. Now I have to come up here and look at this, and this is where we're going to kind of transition into subtraction, because just like when we added integers, when we add decimals, if they have different signs, a negative and a positive, I have to subtract. So I have to take my bigger number, which is negative 9, and I have to subtract 7 88/100ths from that number to get my negative answer, because the bigger number is negative. And so remember that after my 9 is my decimal point, 9 is a whole number. So 9 is in the ones place, my decimal point is after that. So when I line them up, this is what it should look like. And I'm actually going to do my subtraction with my decimal points lined up. And so I can't do 0 minus 8, so I have to borrow. There's nothing to borrow from here, so I have to borrow from the 9 and make it an 8. This becomes a 10, but when I borrow from it, it becomes 9, and this last number becomes a 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2, 9 minus 8 is 1, and 8 minus 7 is 1. And so negative 9 plus 7 88/100ths is negative 1 and 12/100ths. Don't forget your negative sign once you do all that work to subtract. Come back to your answer. That's where your estimate's going to help you. This should be about negative 1, not about positive 1. And then I go back and go, oh yeah, negative 9 is bigger than 7 88/100ths, so my answer is negative. Different signs subtract and keep the sign of the higher number. So negative 1 and 12/100ths is my answer for that last addition problem.